What's up, guys? Today we're going to be doing an in-depth review of a nice sparring session I had with a friend of mine and member of the gym here at MTK Tucson. His name is AJ, and he's been learning to box for about 4 months or so as of the filming of this session. I've really got to give this guy credit. He's super consistent with his routine and sets a great example for someone new to the sport who would like to set their bar for progress relatively high. Now AJ's goal is to compete in the amateurs. That being said, I just want to say that the types of things I'll be critiquing in this video are not only for someone with those goals. The things we learn in the ring with sparring carry over to a lot of other aspects of life. So as Bruce Lee said, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, add what is essentially your own. Getting to the breakdown here, in a couple of our previous sparring sessions, he was having trouble staying narrow with his shoulders, making him a slightly bigger target than need be. This was allowing me to set him up for the right hand off of the jab, as well as with the lead right on the transitions over the line of attack with relative ease compared to tonight's session, in which he did a much better job of keeping his shoulders narrow when away on guard. Another problem he was dealing with, which was slipping from too far away, was improved by catching my jab more frequently. He did a better job of using my own weapons against me than he ever had before. I almost always begin the first round by circling away from my opponent's power hand and jabbing to begin testing their range and setting up other punches. This lets me know what my opponent's go-to defense for my most common punch is going to be. Is it an inside or outside slip? Is it a catch? A parry? What is it? As boxers, we have to be observing patterns of predictability in our opponents and use tools like range, rhythm, timing, speed, and power to impose our presence upon them and land the necessary punches. As you can probably see in many of our exchanges here, that there is a recurring theme of trading jabs from range, then entering and doubling right hands while strafing through or circling left. This is because there is a common concept in boxing that we call hooking with the hooker. Oftentimes it's said in reference to a situation similar to this recurring one here with AJ and I, where the punches thrown have set both fighters in position to throw the lead hook as their next logical blow. When both pull the trigger on the same punch from the same position, it comes down to who goes first, who's faster, who had better balance at the moment, and so on and so forth. That's definitely a game of chance I wouldn't want to play if I can help it, and I can. So what I do instead is double the punch. In this case, we trade jabs, then right hands. Then on what for most people's third punch in this sequence would be the lead hook, I throw the cross again, which makes it guaranteed to be the shorter punch. As a counter to this, AJ discovered that from that position, his next best option generally is to shift and exit in a southpaw position. Shifting out in that way allows him to keep his right hand, which is now his closest hand to me, in close proximity as he just did there. It's not always faster or smarter to throw your other hand. And doubling punches isn't only used to set things up. Sometimes it is the setup, as is the case many times here between AJ and I. Although I was finding it a little bit more difficult to lead with the right hand, I was still having success when setting it up with the jab, then transitioning over to the left side like I did just there. For me personally, as a rule of thumb, whenever my head's over my rear foot, I'm generally trying to slip to the outside over my lead foot. And whenever my head's over my lead foot, the opposite is true. I'm trying to slip over to my right side or my rear foot to get over there. Since you never really want to have your head right on the center of the line of attack, you generally want to be transitioning from one side to the other. If you avoid spending time on center in front of your opponent, it makes it more predictable as to which hand they're going to throw and when. If my head is closer to your left hand, you're probably going to throw your left hand. And if it's closer to your right, you're probably going to throw your right. So I use that to my advantage, and as soon as you do, I go left or right, vice versa. Whenever possible, I try to combine that with footwork, especially when going right. Oftentimes it's not enough just to make a punch miss. You have to move during and afterwards. A major critique for myself here would be that I could do a better job of keeping my hands up more frequently. although I am aware when I'm doing it, and it's often because I'm using my hands and arms as a counterbalance for my head movement. But I definitely see some situations here where it was unnecessary and I was leaving myself exposed for no reason. Especially with unnecessarily wide elbows when I'm out away on guard. A similar critique could be made for AJ here, as he is often right in between what you would call a traditional guard and a Philly shell or shoulder roll guard. If you're in between them, that probably means that your shoulders are a little too wide for Philly shell and your lead hand is a little too low for traditional guard. That's what his problem is here, which is leaving him open for the jab right off the front. So long as you're aware of what it is you're doing, you can almost always use it as a draw or a deceptive technique to help lure a punch out of your opponent. AJ may or may not knowingly be in between guards here. He might be intentionally trying to draw a jab to the body per se. By keeping his lead shoulder a little bit open, it exposes his body and he holds his lead hand a little low. Maybe I decide to bite on that and throw the jab, and he can counter with maybe a parry and a jab of his own. I never really like to make definite statements about boxing because anything can really be used and made your own, as I said in the beginning. You just have to know what it is, why you're doing it, and where to use it. In the second half here, I was definitely making more of an effort to land punches to the body to help slow him down. I felt he was beginning to get my number a little bit and was gaining some confidence, starting to come forward more frequently. I say I'm trying to slow him down with body shots as if we're going real hard here. We really aren't. It's just that I'm in pretty terrible shape as of right now, and he's coming down to my level conditioning-wise so that we can work at an understandable pace. So on that note, I just wanted to say a couple more things about this sparring session before I let you see just the last round in silence. It's really important to find sparring partners who not only have a relatively similar skill level, height, and weight, but also, more importantly, have your well-being in mind. Don't get in there and spar, especially unsupervised, with people who up the rate unexpectedly on you, hit you a little too hard, and just overall don't work at an agreeable pace. That being said, the number one rule of boxing, of course, is to protect yourself at all times when you're in the ring. So assuming you do have some good sparring partners who care for your well-being and enjoy learning at a regular pace, there's some other preventative measures other than just protective gear that you can take to help dampen and lessen the blows. My number one favorite is to always keep your hands and fists loose inside your gloves to try to keep the punches from landing as hard as they could. Secondly, when landing to the head, I like to try to place my punches right on the forehead, usually right where the title or emblem of whatever headgear is going to be placed. Placing your punches on this thick piece of foam on the forehead here will help decrease the amount of injuries you have in sparring, as opposed to hitting your opponent right in the center of their face where their nose and mouth is. And third, preferably I'd like to have an experienced, unbiased third party to view from the outside to let us know when we're ramping it up on each other a little more than we should. Agree upon a pace, don't change it unexpectedly. Keep your fists loose inside your gloves and target the padding on your opponent's headgear, as opposed to the center of their face where their nose and mouth is. If you do all that, you'll decrease injuries and have a much more reasonable pace where you can learn and understand what's actually happening. One last big shout out to my man AJ here for the great sparring session. I'm really enjoying getting in there with him. He's a freaking awesome boxer. He's learning real fast. I appreciate having him around. Consider this the first of many progression videos between him and I. This will be the benchmark video for when he comes back from his first amateur fight and he sees how much he's learned. Thanks again for watching, guys. Hope you enjoy the rest right here. If you're looking for a great pair of mitts to gift to a coach or a boxer in your life, be sure to check out the VersaMitts link in my About Page's description. If you're wondering if I have any other resources for learning boxing, be sure to check out my boxing brainstorming Discord chat. Link in the About page. I also have a Patreon where you can support me as well if you'd like to do that. I post exclusive content there for the different tiers. Be sure to check it out. Thanks for listening and check out the rest of this round. Enjoy.